what's going on, class scholars? I hope your day is going well. My name is Kieran Truss, and I'm happy to be hosting you again. Today, we're going to be continuing the Azure Key Vault series. We're going to talk about policy and automatic key rotation. Part one, I did an introduction to key vaults, talked about the three components of key vaults, which is the secrets, keys, and certificates. And then I also showed you exactly how to create an Azure Key Vault, and then rounded off that video with talking about the recommendations on best practices for using Azure Key Vaults. Today's topic, we will cover deploying configure diagnostic settings for Azure Key Vault to Log Analytics Workspace. We're going to talk about another policy, which is Key Vault should have an expiration date. Going another policy with you is Key Vault should have a purge protection enabled. And then finally, I'll end off with doing the Azure Key policy rotation for you. Okay, so over at the Azure portal, I am in policies, and I just came down here to definitions. The first thing I want to do is I want to kind of go in and do the diagnostic settings, right? So we say deploy a diagnostic settings for key. All right. So we have two options there. The one that we're going to look into today is deploy diagnostic settings for Key Vault to Log Analytics Workspace. You can also do it to Event Hub and then throw it to a SIM tool if you're using that within your organization. So let's look at what this policy really does. So this says deploy diagnostic settings for Key Vault to add a Log Analytics Workspace. And you really want to concentrate on the available effects, which is deploy if not exist and disabled. So by default, if we come down here, the default is going to say deploy if not exist. And I am just looking for where that is. Right here, deploy if not exist. That is by default. And this is a built-in policy. So what exactly does that do? And how does that help us out? So for compliance reasons and risk, it definitely helps us out because we want to stay and adhere to those governance, right? So whatever organization you're in, you want to make sure that you're following the right procedures so that this way you don't get dinged by any auditors. So I'm going to come over here to this tab, and I'm already in it, which is my Key Vault, and I'm already in diagnostic settings. And over here in diagnostic settings, you'll see where it has add diagnostic settings. And in here, I'm going to say add diagnostic settings, and this is the information it's going to capture. Audits, I can say all logs, and I'll need to create a diagnostic setting name and then send to Log Analytics Workspace. Now, for this case, it's perfectly fine me to do it from a manual standpoint, but if I have 50 key vaults, I'm not going to want to keep going to each one and do it this way. So this is the reasons why you want to enforce it through a policy. So this policy is going to help do it from an automatic standpoint. So I'm going to go click assign, and I need to go through the scope. So the scope that I'm going to choose is my subscription, resource group. I can do the whole subscription, or I can just throw it to a resource group. I already know what resource group is in, so I'm just going to do it that way. I can have an exclusion if I wanted to, but I don't want an exclusion. And I could change this information here, but I really don't care to. So I could go to advanced. I could put some other information in here if I needed to put that information in, which is fine. I don't need to do that. Parameters, Log Analytics Workspace, my Azure Logs. I can do it that way and drop that in there, which is fine because it needs to know exactly what workspace it needs to go to. And then over here, this remediation task. So what exactly is this remediation task doing? It says by default, this assignment will only take effect on newly created resources. So once I finish this and I create this Azure policy and I apply it, it won't affect what I have in play right now. What I would have to do is do this remediation. And this is a remediation task, which what that does is existing resources can be updated via a remediation task after the policy is assigned. For deploy if not exist policies, the remediation task will deploy the specified template for modifying policies. So I need to check this off so that this way it knows, hey, this needs to happen and take effect for things that are already in use. So that's fine. I could do the create manage identity, East US, which is perfectly fine. So I'm gonna go ahead with that. And then I can have a non-compliance message. So this non-compliance message helps users to understand why a resource is not compliant with the policy. I'm not gonna go through this non-compliant message at the moment. I'm gonna do it a little bit later on. And then what I'll do is review and create. Okay, so that will take a little while, but what we'll do now is we know that this is going to take some time. So what should happen is over here, this diagnostic setting should have the information that was deployed within this one. So if I go to assignments and I look at assignments, I'm going to look for what I have here. It might take a little while for it to come up. And there it goes, deploy settings for Key Vault Azure Workspace. And if we look at it, we see it says Log Analytics Workspace. It has it there. It says deploy if not exist. And we have our information. So I go view compliance. Let's see what populates. Nothing's coming up at the moment. So I have to give this a little time to work through the system. So once that finishes up, then we'll come back and take a look and see exactly how it looks. Okay, right back at the Azure portal now. Gave it a few minutes. It took about, I want to say, probably close to 20 minutes for it to show up as compliant. So this deploy diagnostic settings right here is where we're at. And deploy diagnostic settings for Key Vault 2 Log Analytics Workspace. As you can see, it says 1 out of 1, and we are 100% compliant. So what I'll do is I'm going to come to this tab, which I already have my Key Vaults already established. I'm already in this Key Vault area, I should say. And then over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to diagnostic settings, because remember, that's what it was supposed to force. And you see right here, set by policy log analytics, and it already set it up for us. And then it went to my Azure Logs workspace. So we finished the first one, and you see how that works with Azure policies, and you can use them to help manage the deployment and also the configurations of your Azure Key Vaults. All right, so the next item we want to look at is the Key Vault key should have an expiration date. All right, so what we have here is we have two keys within our Key Vault, and it's app2 SQL 2, app SQL 2, right? So this one right here has no expiration date, and this one has an expiration date. So we should get a ding for that. So let's jump back over to the policies, and the policy we're going to look for is the expiration date. Okay, so this is the one that we need to look for, which is Key Vault key should have an expiration date. So let's take a look and see what this policy does. So the available effects is audit, deny, and disabled. And it says Key Vault should have an expiration date. And let's go and take a look. So right now, the first thing it's going to do for us is going to audit this for us. So if there's any keys that do not have any expiration date, it will let us know about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. I'm going to assign this. And I'm going to choose as a subscription. I'm going to go down to RGECUS. And we're just going to click next. We'll leave that as the way it is. Parameters. We don't need to worry about anything here. Remediation. Let's do a create and manage identity. Let's click next, because we want to see what comes into play. And then we're going to do a review and create. And let's create that. So that's being deployed and assigned. So it's probably going to take a few minutes for this to give us the audit. And what we really want is this one right here. Key Vault should have an expiration date. When we click on it and we look at the compliance, it should let us know if we're in compliance or not. And right now, it's not going to give us anything because it's, see right here, it says compliance state not started. So we're going to give Azure a little bit of time to do its magic. And then once it's done, we're going to come back here. And what we should see is it should come up saying not compliant. And it should give us the information about the key vault and hopefully a key that is in question. All right, we are back. And one thing I will tell you is that this policy did take some time. It actually took a couple of hours for it to actually take effect. So this is a key vault. Key vault key should have an expiration date. And if you come down here, you can see Cloud Scholars. And it's saying the Cloud Scholars key, and that is our key that we applied it to, and it's saying non-compliant. And it's saying 0 out of 1, and it's saying 1 non-compliant. And if I click on it, it's going to give us the details about which keys are given that don't have expiration date. And you see we have app SQL 2, which was what you saw originally in this video. And then I created another key, which is test 3, just to see what was going on. The policy was taking such a long time that I was like, hey, let me just create another key and put a non-expiration date on it just to see what happens. It's just the policy took a while. I haven't read anywhere within Microsoft documentation where it tells you how long a policy is going to take effect within your tenant. If anybody does know about that, I'd be happy to read about it, or if you can just point me in the direction, send me a link, I'd really appreciate it. As always, this is a community, and I am always learning as well, along as with you. So over here it says non-compliant policies, 1 out of 1, and it says non-compliant components. This is 2 out of 3. So the third key has an expiration date. These two do not have it. So there we go. This policy is taking effect. It is working. It just took a bit of time. That's all. Okay, so what we're up to right now is Key Vault should have a purge protection enabled. So that's what we're going to work on at this moment. Okay, so over here, back at policy definitions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for Key Vaults should have, and there we have it. I filtered it out. Key Vault should have purge protection enabled. And what I'll do is I'm going to assign this policy to the right scope. So what I'll do is in this policy it says Key Vault should have purge protection enabled. Then it gives you a description. A malicious detection of a key vault can lead to permanent data loss. A malicious insider in your ability can potentially delete any purge key vaults. So, you know, I like that they give you those descriptions. Kind of gives you a kind of risk of what would happen if you do not have that enabled and what that policy is blocking. So over here we have the allowed value, which is audit, deny, or disable. So we're gonna just say we're gonna go with the disable for this one. Right? Actually, no, sorry, deny. We're going to go with deny for this one. The default value is audit, but we want to deny people from creating them. So I'm going to go to assign, and then within assign, Cloud Scholars, same resource group. I'll click on next. And right here is where I'll just say change the effect without modifying the policy definition. So the effect is default audit, but I'm actually going to say deny, and I'm going to click add. And then what I'll do is parameters. We don't need to worry about that. You could create and manage identity, but we're not going to do that for this. And then compliance message, I'm just going to put something as you need to have purge protection out of compliance. And then what I'll do is I'll click next and I'll create. All right, so we just finished assigning that scope, that policy, excuse me, to our RGECUS. You see right here. So it says Key Vault should have, Key Vault should have a purge protection enabled. So this is the one right here where the purge protection enabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to Key Vaults and I'm going to create a new Key Vault. Now what should happen is the Key Vault should be denied because what I'm going to do is I'm not going to enable protection. So if I go to resource group, I need to make sure I'm in the resource group that we scoped it out for. And Key Vault name, I am going to call it deny this Key Vault because that's what it's supposed to do. And if I need to put this on, but I'm not going to because I want to see what the compliance comes up with. And I'm just going to click next. We don't need to worry about anything else. We just want to see what happens. Now the validation should not pass. So let's see. There it goes. Validation failed. Click here to view details. So if I click here to view details, you'll see what comes up is resource deny this key vault, because that was what we were calling it, was disallowed by policy. And it says the policy key vault should have purge protection enabled. Then it says the reason, and this is the reason right here where we put in that message. You need to have purge protection out of compliance. So at least we know that that's working, and we have that policy that's taking effect, because we want to make sure that all our administrators within our portal are making sure that purge protection is enabled on our resources. So we're at the end of the video where we're talking about Azure Key Policy Rotations. So now let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to come over here, come back to the Key Vaults, and over at the Key Vaults, I'm going to click on Keys. And we have our keys here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this one, right? We can show you this one as well, but I'm going to show you this one. And there's a reason why. So if I go to rotation policy, over here, rotation policy, you can set up a rotation policy for your keys. And I have a bunch of options. I could have days, months, years, right? So if I wanted to, I can just do, hey, I'll do every 60 days. And then I can do enable auto rotation. I can enable it. And then right here it gives you rotation options. So one thing it says is automatically renew at given time period before expiry will be disabled if the current key version does not have expiration date or expiry time not filled. So that's what I was referring to over here. So I go back to keys. If this isn't filled out like these two, so if I go to this one and I go rotation policy, you'll see that if I click enabled, it's not going to give me this second option right here. And the reason why is because I don't have an expiration date, because that's what that one's going to work against. So I'm going to jump back over here to this one because it's going to give me all the different options. And I'm going to put 60 here for 60 days. That's actually way too quickly, but I'll just throw it in there. This is for demonstration purposes. And you see right here, it says automatic renewal at given time period before expiry, because it needs an expiration date so that it can validate against it, saying, oh, okay, so the date is, I don't know, June 20th, okay, and you want the change, the key to be rotated 10 days before. If you don't have anything there, it won't be able to tell it. So I can say automatic renewal at given time after creation. I could put that too. And then I could have a rotation time down here as well, right? So this is expiry time, and then this is a rotation time you can have there, and then you can do a notification. So let's go to the Microsoft documentation so you can get an understanding what I mean. So over here, the Microsoft documentation, and what I'll do is I'm going to drop a link to this in the description. But basically, it tells you all the settings. So key rotation policy settings, expiry time, key expiration interval. It's used to set expiration date on newly rotated keys. It doesn't affect a current key. Then you have enabled, disabled. That's straightforward. And then you have the rotation types. So this is the one that I was talking about, right? So it says automatic renew at given time period before expiry. It requires expiry time set on rotation policy and an expiration date set on the key. Then you have the rotation time, key rotation interval. The minimum value is 7 days from creation and 7 days from expiration time. This portion is what I want you to really take into effect, right? This is what I want you to really pay attention to, excuse me. Key near expiry event interval for event grid notification. It requires expiry time set on a rotation policy and expiration date set on the key. So you can integrate it with event grid so that this way you can get some kind of notifications popping up within your environment. So let me get back over here, and what I can do is I can say rotation time. I could say 18 months. I could say how many days. Let me say if I just drop it to 40, and that's fine. And then I could say notification options, notify a given time before expiry. I could say, hey, I want it to, rotation time is 50, we have 60, and then down here, notification time, I can say, I don't know, 40 days. And then that way I can have it, and then I just click on save. and then key rotation policy has been updated. Now I'm just throwing in some data in here. There's much more thought process that goes into this, but this is just for demonstration purposes to show you exactly how the rotation policies work. All right, Cloud Scholar. So that wraps up for this video. This is part 2 of the Azure Key Vault series. In part 3, I'm going to go over Key Vault backup and replication. We're going to go into a little bit about that in the next video. As for now, definitely go stretch your legs, take a break, grab something to eat, drink. Probably need a 15-minute break just to kind of rest, and then come back and watch part 3. So as always, I hope this video was beneficial. If you have not done so yet, please smash that like and subscribe button and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about the video, or if you have any questions about Key Vaults or any other Azure topic, please definitely leave a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. As always, our goal is to get you from scholar to consultant and from consultant to expert. Thank you, and see you next time.